Mark, have you got anything comments for Mandy before we start wrapping up?
I have actually, yeah. So it's all good and well with the Farage saying the 10 councils can end all the woke stuff, because, yeah, they probably can very easily. But what can reform councillors and independent and other councillors who are standing up against, the two-party, the establishment, what can they do if they're not in, reform councils? How can they combat this against their councils? The likes of the child safeguarding and the women's rights, the trans issue.
So do you mean like in councils like ours, where I'm in
like yourself,
minority?
there's one or two councillors, they could be independent, reform, whatever, but they're up against this brick wall of Labour and Conservatives. You just don't want to know. They've caused all this over the last God knows how long. What can they do to stand up to this?
Oh, there's so many things, isn't there? I mean, there's the thing like at the minute we are writing to schools, school heads, to hold them to account, to ask them about their policies and what they're teaching to children. What
we are,
the law is on our side now in terms of the Equality Act. So, where they've got rid of, like in our council, they replaced women-only swim sessions with family. They changed the name of it to family, basically so they can make sure that men can come along and there's no women-only. They don't have the problem of having a single-sex group that trans rights activists might give them grief for. They're going to have to they're going to have to reinstate them. And then, they've had like domestic abuse support groups where they've allowed it to be run in the community on a self-ID basis. They're going to have to change that. So the law's on our side. People can get in touch with, if they've got a councillor who speaks up. First of all, the councillors have to speak up. You have to be brave and you have to just speak up. Once you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and you are going to get some stick. But once you've actually done that, gradually people will start feeling relieved that someone's done it and said it, and you'll start to get them on board. And then you can have members of the public come along and speak at the meetings as well when you've managed to get a motion on the agenda, just to show there's public support for pushing back against all this ideology stuff. I mean, in terms of reform, I would imagine they're going to have to deal with DEI through allowing contracts to lapse rather than actually actively sacking people, because I don't think you can do that. But it's good that the intention's there and that they're crystal clear that needs to happen, because it absolutely does. Do you want another little scoop?
Go ahead.
Go on.
Yeah. Okay, so I did some digging in our invoices. Over £500 for Cheshire West and Chester Council. And what I found was that in 2021-22, the council spent just over £9,000 on Chester Pride, just Chester Pride.
£9,000.
Just over 9,000. In 22-23, that had doubled to just over £19,000. And in 23-24, it had doubled again to just over £49,000 just on Chester Pride.
So we can see a pattern. So we can kind of guess how much it's going to cost for 24-25 then.
Yeah, not got those figures yet, but it's important that people know that, because they've just cut disability, the shop mobility disability service that they'll provide. Now they've reinstated it partially after there was a kickoff about it, but it's not the same service. You can't get the repairs and things like that people might need to get.
Jesus, what are these people doing? What the hell?
We've got so many issues in Cheshire, like the send crisis and all kinds of stuff going on. I think this money could be much better spent. But no, thanks for answering that question, Mandy, because I just wanted to show other councillors that you don't need to wait for someone like Reform to come in and win the council. You can actually stand up to them, as you've been doing for a while now, pretty much on your own. Obviously, you've had some help with some other councillors, but hopefully people can take some
49,000
to try and tackle these councils, because this woke stuff's not going to go away.